My name is Shyla, and I'm a restorative practitioner in Kjipuktuk, Halifax. I specialize in workplace climate and culture and spend my days supporting groups through conflict and toward better ways of working together. Today, I want to talk about something that is both simple and deeply transformative: what it means to center relationships in our work, whether we are legal professionals advising clients, employers shaping organizational culture, or people who are interested in working with others in positive ways. You may hear this way of working described in different ways: relational strategy, restorative practices or principles, person-centered service, and so on. While the terminology varies, it all points to a shared orientation, focusing on the humans in the room before focusing on the tasks and deliverables. It's about bringing attention, care, and accountability to our connections so that we act with integrity and respect. In professional environments, we often emphasize compliance, liability, risk, and efficiency, and all of these matter. But beneath every one of those concepts is something profoundly human: people. People who want to feel respected, safe, valued, and able to do their best work. That's where a relational approach becomes essential. Not only do we offer better service, but our work can feel more satisfying, efficient, and meaningful. Before going any further, it's important to acknowledge the Indigenous foundations of these concepts. Restorative approaches begin with a simple understanding that strong relationships are the foundation of all other things. This is a perspective that exists across many Indigenous systems of governance and community life. Long before restorative approaches were adopted and adapted in settler systems, Indigenous communities practiced relationship-centered, holistic, and non-punitive ways of understanding harm and responsibility. These practices emphasized healing, accountability, community involvement, and connection, not punishment or exclusion. Here in Nova Scotia, Mi'kmaq and Indigenous elders and leaders directly contributed to the development of the restorative justice programs we use today. Their generosity in sharing cultural knowledge carries particular weight given the long and painful history of colonization, criminalization, and systemic inequity that continues to shape our institutions, including the overrepresentation of Indigenous folks in our carceral justice system. These days, many settler spaces are adapting and adopting restorative aspects into their work, and it's vital that the Indigenous lineage of these traditions are acknowledged and appreciated. So when we talk about workplaces rooted in trust, belonging, and accountability, we're drawing from deeply relational cultural practices. I believe the strength of this approach lies in the fact that it is not rooted in colonial ways of working. And for this, I am grateful. So what exactly is a relational approach? In workplace settings, relational strategy is sometimes misunderstood as soft or secondary. In reality, tending to relationships at work is both strategic and essential. From a restorative lens, several core understandings guide how we work. Connection is an essential medicine. Conflict, while often uncomfortable, is natural and can be an opportunity for growth if we handle it with care. Making mistakes is part of being human and essential to our growth and development, both personally and professionally. And responsibility and accountability are qualities we should encourage and celebrate. From this lens, we see relationships not as a nice-to-have, but as infrastructure. Relationships are part of the organizational architecture, just as important as technology, finance, or HR systems. We center emotional safety and physiological regulation. Because people cannot problem solve, collaborate, or communicate effectively if they are in a state of activation. This approach isn't about avoiding conflict. It's about staying connected enough to move through conflict well. It's about the quality of how we show up in meetings, how we listen, how we work together, whose voices we hear, and most importantly, how we respond when things get hard. For legal professionals, this means ensuring clients feel safe, understood, and supported through legal processes, regardless of outcome. For employers, it means building the conditions for trust, clarity, and shared purpose, even during moments of tension or change. For all of us, it means bringing care and consideration into how we work with others every day. So how do we actually bring this perspective into our work? The beautiful thing about relational strategy is that anyone can apply this lens at any time, in any capacity or setting. The most impactful thing you can do in your role is to start by listening to the people in front of you before giving advice. In a world of tight deadlines and heavy workloads, it's easy to slip into fix-it mode. That impulse is valid and a sign of efficiency and competence, but the impact is often disconnecting. When we jump into action without fully understanding, we risk investing time and energy into the wrong work. Many workplace conflicts begin as small miscommunications that grow because they weren't addressed early. Even when you already know what needs to happen, beginning with listening helps the other person feel heard and understood. That builds trust and confidence in you and your process. So the number one rule is to listen. Reflective listening is by far the most powerful and practical tool you can start practicing today. This means reflecting back what you hear using phrases like, "Am I right that?" or "It sounds like." The beauty of reflective listening is that you don't need to get it perfectly right. If you reflect something back to someone and they respond with a yes, great work. You've confirmed you have a shared understanding. If they respond with, "Well, actually," or something similar, great work. That's also a success. It means you've opened the door for clarity. This style of conversation is a fast-track approach for trust. Other simple practices to build trust include starting meetings with brief check-ins, clearly outlining your role or goal, giving an overview of your process, inquiring about accommodations requirements, and offering space for people to talk about their needs and realities. It also helps to give clear information ahead of time. Consider giving people information on where to park, where exactly your office is located, how accessible your space is, and what to expect coming into the meeting. Give people time and space to ask questions, and don't forget the golden rule. Listen. Make sure you ask at least a few questions and reflect back what you hear before diving into actions and solutions. These small choices have a big cumulative impact on trust and working relationships. And remember, listening is a practice. Keep practicing and notice what changes in your relationships when you take time to understand other perspectives. A relational workplace is not informal or boundaryless. In fact, clear, thoughtful, and predictable policy structures are essential to healthy relationships at work. Good policies do three key things. First, they create safety through clarity, and clarity is calming. When people know what to expect, uncertainty and fear decrease. Second, they reduce the emotional load on leaders. Policies help leaders respond rather than react. Instead of relying on personal judgment or preference, leaders can point to shared agreements. This protects everyone and shifts responsibility from individuals to systems. Third, they make relational practice scalable. A relational workplace shouldn't depend on one charismatic leader or one nice team. Strong policies ensure that dignity, fairness, and communication practices are consistently built right into your organization. Healthy workplaces typically have policies that address organizational mission and values, respectful workplace standards, clear documentation of roles, responsibilities, policies, and procedures, performance reviews, performance management processes, discipline parameters and support structures, conflict resolution pathways, health and safety, including psychological safety, and anti-discrimination, harassment, and sexual harassment policies with trauma-informed considerations. Strong policies offer voice and choice rather than one-size-fits-all responses. They clearly articulate desired behaviors, not just prohibited ones, and are written using a rights and responsibilities lens for both employers and employees. I also recommend developing policies for gender inclusion, accessibility and accommodations processes, and environmental stewardship. Bringing a relational approach into professional practice is a win for all of us. It's the foundation for effective, sustainable, human-centered work, and good policies are not bureaucratic obstacles. They are the backbone that makes relational workplaces possible. When you combine clarity with compassion, structure with humanity, and procedure with presence, you get workplaces that people can trust. And trust, more than anything else, is what allows teams to thrive. Thank you for joining me. We truly love working with Legal Information Society Nova Scotia. Reach out with any questions or to work with us. The Legal Information Society of Nova Scotia, providing legal information at your fingertips.